If I could go back in time and not have that happen to me, I wouldn't, because I have learned so much. It has really shaped who I am as a person now. This is the first experimental tea time. Welcome to the channel. I'm going to be testing out this series called Tea Stories, and today we are drinking white tea. So I'm going to pour myself some of this. So the reason that I like drinking white tea is because it has a little bit less caffeine. And now it is, let me see, 8 p.m. in Amsterdam. So cheers. So on this channel, I am talking a bit about all of the things that I do, which is quite a lot. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Tajima. I have a background in working in product design for many years in San Francisco in the Bay Area. And then I've kind of lived all over the place. So I've lived in Japan, I've lived in France, I've lived in Sweden, and now I live in the Netherlands. I was working in product design and had my own business called The Craft. And The Craft was really also focused on doing consulting with tech companies, also teaching people product design. So at one point, I actually had a product design boot camp, and this was focused on real world application. I went through quite a lot of changes in a very short time, and so I thought that today that's what I could share with you, because I actually do get quite a few questions on this, on the journey that I went through and on my background. And even though maybe it feels a bit weird to share something that is very sensitive for me, I also think that, I have shared a little bit on LinkedIn in the past. The reason that I do that is because I want to encourage other people who are in the same situation. And also just to be real, because at any given moment, any of us can be going through a multitude of very challenging things, and you never know what someone is going through. So I think that's also important to keep in the forefront of our mind and just be good humans and not pass judgments on anyone. So in today's Tea Talk, I want to tell you a little bit about the past few years and my journey recovering from long COVID. As I mentioned, I was working with tech companies as a consultant through my company, The Craft. And then basically, my dad passed away. This was expected because my dad has been ill since I was about 7 years old with many different issues: leukemia, prostate cancer, ruptured colon, surgeries, strokes, and yeah, many things that I won't completely list out here. It's been a very long journey since I was a child of watching him suffer to greater and greater extent until he passed away. At the time, I was still working for my company, Webflow, as a senior product designer. And because of that, I really couldn't handle going back to work. Everyone grieves really differently. So I noticed that even in my own family, that, for example, my brother went back to work immediately, and I took a lot longer. And even my mom grieved differently, like a lot of distracting herself, whereas I just fully went into like full-blown grief mode. And Kuma here, I don't think you can see him on the camera, was very helpful for me. He's been with me through it all, so I really appreciate him. What happened next? I quit my job at Webflow. I went all in on my company, The Craft. I was really fortunate to get jobs right away. People reached out to me through LinkedIn asking me to do work for them. But after my dad passed away, I started reflecting a lot more and thinking a lot more about just existence and the world we live in and the kind of impact that I wanted to have. 6 months later, I went through kind of the falling apart of a long term relationship. And this sort of culminated in me getting long COVID, actually, getting COVID, I should say, as I was flying back to Hawaii, not really realizing what it was or how serious it was. And I was just meant to come home for a short period to help my mom renovate the house. And instead, I broke up with my partner. I was going back and forth to the emergency room, and he didn't really show up for me. And at that point, I kind of said, okay, I'm going to call this. And I won't really get into that. But yeah, what a blessing. And it was very weird because we lived together in Amsterdam. So all of my stuff was in Amsterdam. I was going back and forth to the emergency room. At first, they told me that they thought I had multiple sclerosis. And yeah, that was quite alarming because I didn't know what it was at the time. So I was Google searching in the hospital and realized like, oh shit, multiple sclerosis is really bad. That's like basically, yeah, it messes up your life. And I know there are various treatments now that can make it more manageable, but still, you basically end up falling apart. Yeah, not ideal to be told that you might have that. And also other things that they were kind of looking at were like Guillain-Barré, or Guillain-Barré. I don't know how you say that. And really, they couldn't figure out what the issue was, but I was having a lot of neurological issues. And so the reason that I went to the emergency room was because I got back and I basically slept for 3 days straight in Hawaii. And then I couldn't walk. So I was just having a lot of numbness, uh, yeah, numbness or sort of a pins and needles feeling in my hands, forearms, feet, and like the lower part of my leg, like the shin area. Everything was kind of numb, and I couldn't walk. Was falling down the stairs on accident, and was just extremely, extremely tired and weak. And so I would wake up in the morning and then try to work a bit, because yeah, I'm quite a person that tries to push through normally. And by 11 a.m., I just had to go back to bed because I was so exhausted. That, yeah, kind of went on for a few days. And then I started getting these feelings of like being shocked. Then we did brain scans. And at that point, I think the neurologist kind of said, I think you might have long COVID. This is sounding a bit like other patients that have neurological issues with long COVID. And basically, where I was at that point was like, I couldn't exercise at all. And I'm such a healthy and active person. Like, normally I would exercise almost daily, and, dancing ballet and everything, going to the gym. Yeah, to not even be able to walk was really depressing. Like, I think I went through, well, I was so tired that I could barely comprehend anything. But at the same time, just feeling so kind of devastated and depressed by where I was at with my health. What is interesting to talk about also is kind of the health of your nervous system. When I got COVID this time around, obviously I had gone through a bunch of really heavy things. My dad passed away. My relationship basically fell apart, and then I got stuck in Hawaii for 8 months, which is not a bad place to get stuck with my family, so that was worked out as well as it could have. But I was already grieving very heavily, and also, like, in Chinese TCM, you could say, like, my heart and my lungs were already very impacted. And so once I got COVID that time around, it really just completely destroyed me because I had had COVID before, which is what I wanted to mention, and I was totally fine. I had COVID and I was sick for 2 weeks. I had a bit of cold symptoms and was tired, and then I was absolutely fine after that. And I've also had COVID since then in Japan when I went skiing recently, and also recovered almost immediately. It was kind of like having a cold. So, yeah, it was scary to get COVID again after having long COVID, but yeah, in the end, it was fine. So, what I have learned through this journey is so massive. I'm not even sure where to start, or we'll be here for 3 years. But basically, what happened was I felt like Western medicine had really failed me. There was nothing really that the doctors could do for me. They were starting to recommend really heavy drugs. And at first, actually, one of the doctors kept trying to put me on antidepressants because they thought that I was depressed. And I have to say, like, really listen to your gut feelings and don't just take advice from doctors or take medicine. Obviously, they're also doing the best that they can with the knowledge that they have. But I think what I really ran into, which felt a bit like hitting a brick wall with Western medicine, is that they don't treat the body holistically. And so when I discovered that this was probably a result of long COVID, I started really doing my own research and testing with my own body. And there was some guy out of the UK, I think Jez Medinger, who had written a book on long COVID and some of the things that patients had tried to get better. And so I started experimenting with this stuff, started really learning about the vagus nerve, which runs through your entire body, and so is very important. Also, learning more about the nervous system and doing things like acupuncture, doing things that would sort of calm the vagus nerve with sound or with the ears. Through acupuncture, actually, it was one of those things where initially, like, I had never done acupuncture before because I was maybe one of those people who thought, like, yeah, but what is putting needles in your body really gonna do? And I did acupuncture as well as all of the other things that I was doing, so I'll share a little bit about that. But after maybe 7 sessions, okay, so after the first session, I already immediately noticed that I could actually feel the energy in my body when she pulled the needles out. So that was really quite interesting or surprising to me. By the seventh treatment, I really noticed a big improvement in my health. Let me just make sure that I'm recording audio. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I really started to notice a big improvement in my health by then, but I was also I had also relapsed a few times prior to. So it took a lot of experimentation and a lot of figuring out where my boundaries were with my body. I was meditating every day for like at least an hour, and I still meditate every day. This is like really a non-negotiable for me. And through meditation, I also was able to deeply relax the nervous system. And when you're able to deeply relax the nervous system, you start to release things. You start to release trauma stored in your body. And that is also part of my learning journey with this. So there's a book by Bessel van der Kolk that I'll try to link in the comments or something of this video. The Body Keeps Score. There's a few books that I read like this that yeah, just helped me understand better how detached I was from my body and how much I was just forcing myself to go, go, go instead of really taking care of myself and listening to my body. The body is highly intelligent, so when you give it the space and the tools that it needs to recover, it heals itself. And that is exactly what I experienced through this journey. It's a bit hard to tell you all of the things that I did, but basically it was slowly starting to go on walks, which sounds very basic, but it was really a struggle for me to walk in the beginning because, as I mentioned, sometimes I would just fall down or I just couldn't walk because I was exhausted. I had a hard time breathing. My lungs felt very constricted. And in the beginning, actually, I remember that I don't even know what this is because I'm not a doctor, but everything was swollen when I first got COVID and arrived back in Hawaii. Everything was swollen. I couldn't breathe. It was like my arteries were hard or something. It was really bizarre. And so I was doing a lot of shiatsu, trying to like relax the muscles and everything. I had migraines every day, which was terrible. So in the beginning, I couldn't really figure out what to do for migraines. And I also listened to a lot of Andrew Huberman as I was experimenting with my health. And one of the things that he spoke about was how peppermint essential oil was actually proven to be really helpful. And I found that to be true. The peppermint oil did help me a lot. I didn't want to take a lot of ibuprofen or a lot of pills or medication. They did at some point give me like intense migraine medication, and I didn't want to take that. But one of the doctors gave me a good tip, which was fish oil, B12, and magnesium is good for headaches. And that is something that did help me. So I was also experimenting with a lot of supplements to figure out what might work. And that definitely helped me for migraines. I also noticed that the migraines would become especially worse around my period, and I think my entire body was just completely dysregulated because of my health. Pills, shiatsu, walking, acupuncture, meditation, not everything happened at the same time, but it was really like a year of experimentation and a year when I was really so ill that I could not work a job. So I just didn't work. Like I remember in a course that I teach now on growth design, someone was asking me why I stopped doing design work, and this was a while ago. And it was literally because I couldn't work at all. Like I was just so exhausted. I couldn't even get through a day without resting. And so that's also actually what pushed me to meditation is I needed to lay down. I didn't even have a choice. I was just absolutely floored and so exhausted. And I remember sitting outside one day in my backyard on Maui and just thinking like, is this my life now? Am I just basically not going to be able to do anything, not going to be able to work out, not going to be able to yeah, do my job for 8 hours. Like, I couldn't even get through 4 hours. It was really, really heavy for me actually to be so limited in my own body and to feel like I had no control actually over my body. Because as I mentioned, I was such a person that, obviously with ballet, for example, everything down to your fingertip, you have absolute control over, and you're able to really push it, and you're able to do really heavy cardio to all of a sudden just be out of breath from walking in the kitchen, or to be like sweating so profusely and just your body doing weird things, tasting metallic when you're eating food and completely dysregulated. And so my body was going through like a very heavy purge, and I needed rest, clearly. At that point, I had no choice but to listen to my body and, yeah, take the rest that it needed, because I had tried a handful of times to get back to ballet or to do more intense workouts. And what I found is that I immediately relapsed. And it's maybe hard to understand for someone that hasn't experienced it, but my body really felt like a dried out rubber band. And so it was like if I stretched it, it just snapped. And my muscles even felt like this, like a, yeah, dried out rubber band is like really the best way that I can explain it. But I really struggled in my own body. It was such a bizarre feeling. And I'm so grateful now to really be pretty much recovered. So I can also talk a little bit about that. But the practices actually stay in my life. And I remember talking to someone else who reached out to me on LinkedIn who was going through similar health problems. And I said, if I could go back in time and not have that happen to me, I wouldn't, because I have learned so much from that experience, and it has really shaped who I am as a person now. The second year I was able to move back to Amsterdam and get my things back. So I moved back to Amsterdam, registered my business here, and that's how I did it. And then got an apartment, got my things back, and tried to start working again with clients and also doing climate tech investing. This is when I really started implementing, like, thinking about that change that I wanted to be in the world. And I really wanted to do something for the environment. And that is why I started investing in early stage, seed stage climate tech startups. And when I say climate tech, it's more like deep tech. So often it's some sort of hardware component or mushrooms or hydrogen or something like that. And so quite different from anything that I had ever done before, because I had never invested. I had invested in some SaaS companies. I've, of course, invested in companies that I've worked for naturally through RSUs like Zendesk. I invested in the company that I worked at in the Netherlands, and then also started my angel investing journey in a company that I actually use for my business bank, Mercury. This was the first time that I was investing in climate and in something that was not software related, and that trajectory is very different. Not the point of this video, but I do have other videos if you want to learn more on climate tech. And I will continue to talk about climate and about the environment, because that is something that I feel very strongly about. That's why I completely pivoted my business, which is now conscious tech. The craft really evolved from purely product design and growth design to focusing more on how do we think about building conscious technology, and how do we think about ourselves as conscious humans and the impact that we are having on the planet and people, and not just building companies that are entirely focused on profit and extracting the most value possible so that only a few will benefit from that. It's been an incredible journey. I do also find, and maybe I'll talk more about this on the channel if that interests you, but when you are really able to tap into yourself more, and this is, I think, something that meditation helped me with immensely, is like really being able to listen to your body, listen to your guidance, listen to your intuition, and receive that guidance. Then everything starts happening in flow, because you are now listening to the universe instead of trying to force something, or instead of following a path that is not 100% authentic to you. So, through this path, I naturally discovered a group called Climate Insiders, where I was able to immediately start investing in these companies. And through that was how I started working on advising these founders on, for me, really, it still falls into the design category of product design. It's using my growth hacking background, growth design, product market fit, that kind of thing. So, I don't think founders necessarily take it that way. I think they look at it much more as sort of product management skills or growth skills, but it's all stuff that I learned as a product designer. And this is what I advise companies on. So it's been an incredible journey. I've built really great relationships with the founders that I've invested in. I have them coming on the podcast, which is really exciting. And I'm going to incorporate more climate and environmental stuff into the podcast and into my own content now. I've been really excited to see more product designers reaching out to me because I've made that pivot. And, initially when I started talking more about climate tech, it felt like I alienated my product design audience a little bit because not everyone is necessarily, of course, there's some overlap, but people really followed me for the design content. And now I'm talking about climate. I have so many interests that's why, for this channel and for my podcast, I really wanted to focus more on not necessarily sharing like who I am as a person, because the point is not that the content is about me, but it's about the things that I'm interested in. And that's why, for example, I have the Sarah Tajima podcast, not the technology podcast, because as I grow as a human, which is natural, I want to hopefully be able to evolve my content and keep my audience with me and not just have someone that, only is interested in me because they're interested in UX design, for example. This is what I'm thinking about now. I'm also in the process of starting my third business. So I had the craft, which evolved into conscious tech recently. And then I had my Dutch business that I was running here in the Netherlands. And now I'm also starting another Hawaii business, which is Tajima Botanica. And I will share more about that. But it is really inspired by my entire long COVID journey, grieving, understanding my body, healing, and yeah, tapping into your own internal wisdom. That's what's inspired this next company that's coming. And it's something that I've never done before because it has nothing really to do with technology unless you're considering the human body technology, which I do think that, yeah, you absolutely could, and that the human body is highly intelligent. Those are mostly the things that I wanted to talk about. Let me just check my notes here because I know a few people asked me questions and a few people asked me to talk about different things. Oh, yes. Okay. So someone asked me to talk more about my meditation practice. So I can talk a bit about meditation, how I started, what I do now. Kuma's gonna come join. Tjena. Hur mår du? Vill du komma hit? Before I get into the meditation stuff a little bit deeper, I also wanted to talk about the sponsor of today's video, which is Rogershood. So I actually found out about this company through a podcast that I listened to. And that host of the podcast is about my age, lives in California. She did this detox, and I've never done a proper detox before. Like, I've done things where I'm like, okay, this, is healthy for me with the intention of taking care of my body, but I've never actually gone, okay, I need to do a proper detox. I've never been the kind of person to fast for over 24 hours. Yeah, at most, maybe 12 hours. But I am the kind of person who feels like I need food. And that's obviously just a psychological thing. But yeah, I also think for women, fasting is different. And that's also a whole nother subject. So, anyways, she did the detox, and the detox is to detox you from parasites, mold, candida. Oh, I'm forgetting something. Okay, 3 tincture parasite cleanse protocol supports the body's natural detoxification, digestive and gut, liver and immune, gentle cleansing. Oh, that's what it is. Heavy metals. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, so it detoxes you from parasites, heavy metals, mold, and candida. So, anyways, it's 3 different tinctures, and then you have a binder, which is charcoal. I listened to her, and she said that stuff actually came out of her body, which is kind of gross and shocking. Because of that, I was like, oh, I don't know. I feel really this urge to try it out. And I did. And I didn't, to be honest, I just ordered it. And this company is US based. And so it took a little while to come, and then it came, and I was like, okay, I think this is a good opportunity for me to take it now before I'm like traveling. And it's a 30-day cleanse that you do. but I hadn't really read into it too much. So then it arrived on the first day and I took it with the instructions. You're, putting these drops in your mouth. And I realized that actually the diet that you need to be on when you're doing this detox is quite strict. And I have to say, I already eat very clean. One thing I didn't mention is during my long COVID journey, one of the things that also really helped me was obviously the things that you put into your body to fuel it. And I did a low histamine diet. And so then I, completely changed the way that I ate and was experimenting with which foods worked well with my body. I also didn't drink a ton of alcohol before because I was already like Asian and allergic, but I did completely stop drinking alcohol, of course, when I was ill. And then I also cut out coffee, which has histamines. And then I just kept doing that. So what worked for my body really as I recovered, because even in the second year of recovery from long COVID, I was still exhausted all the time. As I mentioned, I came back to Amsterdam, but I said no to things a lot, like got invited to social events or got invited to things with my friends. And I really had to say no a lot. And I had to make sure that I was doing my meditation after lunch. Otherwise, I would be too exhausted and had to be really careful. I couldn't work out as much. I could maybe work out like once a week with ballet. And so it's really been like a very slow recovery process, but I'm so happy to say that now I really feel like I'm at a point where I'm pretty strong. The only thing is that my TCM person says that my heart and lung is still weak, which also affects your blood flow. So I recently did a 2-week Shaolin retreat at the Shaolin Temple Europe and found, yes, indeed, I can feel my heart struggling, especially for things that are cardio intensive like running. But even when we did this like punch move where you're punching and you have to do it very quickly, and I can literally hear my lungs like making weird noises. So yeah, anyways, bit of a tangent there. But because I was used to having quite a strict diet already, it didn't affect me too much when it comes to doing the cleanse. No bread, no gluten. That's fine by me. I try not to eat gluten anyways. But then you also couldn't have like rice, which is a bit challenging for me. Like I like to have rice every now and then. I literally grew up eating rice with every single meal. Yeah, some other things like every now and then I do really love a good pasta. I'm gonna put them linked in the description, but I remember calling my friends and even my family and telling them about it. And, my mom's like, oh, absolutely, I can't do that because I need to have rice every day. Or my other friend that I called in Australia, Claire, loves pasta and bread and carbs and butter and all the things. And like, you can't have that when you're on this detox. So, I would highly encourage you to do the detox because I definitely noticed I had die off symptoms, which you could read more about on their website. And something came out around day 4 or 5. I don't know what it is because 'cause I'm not an expert. All in all, I just felt much better after doing the detox, and apparently you're supposed to do it, I think, yeah, look at their website and don't quote me on this, but I think it's like twice a year or something, or at least every year. And I think this is definitely a habit that I will keep. I'm probably gonna do it at least once a year. I think it's a good habit to regularly do a detox, especially if you really want to detox, because at the end of the day, yes, you can fast or you can eat clean, but you're not really using herbs to support the actual removal from your body. And also with the binder that they have, the charcoal binder, that's very important to remove things like parasites. So 10 out of 10 recommended, and that's why I have them. That's why I'm an affiliate for them. Anyways, let's talk about meditation. So, as I mentioned, I've done meditation in the past and it didn't stick for me because I think I just, with my schedule, had a hard time keeping to it. So, I tried it with, I think, Headspace and then didn't really stick to it while I was working in tech in the Bay Area. Once I got COVID, I was so ill that I had to rest constantly. And so I naturally found myself laying down and, if not sleeping, then trying to just, yeah, relax. And listening to Andrew Huberman, I learned about yoga nidra or non sleep deep rest. And this is what I actually found first as my gateway into meditation that was incredible for relaxing the nervous system. And when you deeply relax the nervous system, you will actually feel your body start to just naturally do things like move or shake, kind of like I don't know, a deer almost getting attacked and then shaking it off or something, or dogs do that as well. I use this app called Insight Timer to begin my meditation journey during COVID. And I really, really love this app and I highly recommend it. And I can also link that. I will say that after a certain point of meditating for so long, I moved to other things. So now I like to listen to Hertz music. It could be like 432. Yeah, I'm using my phone to record. I wanted to look up some other stuff. It just kind of depends, but Hertz music, there's like the earth frequency or 963 or like different Hertz frequencies for different things in your body. So you can look into that. Yeah, if not that, then silence. I like to meditate in the same spot because I believe that spaces hold energy. And so when I'm meditating in the same spot, I mean, it's kind of like when you go to sleep, right? I only use my bed for sleeping. And then when you go to bed, like your brain immediately associates that spot with what it's supposed to do there. So, same concept with meditation. I always meditate laying completely flat on the ground. This is how, like, this is ideal for NSDR or Yoga Nidra. Also, through just meditating for so long like that, I realized that is the best way for me to completely relax my body and to release, like relax my nervous system, release and kind of leave. I really like laying down. I don't know how you could deeply relax the body sitting up. I definitely know people who meditate sitting up and it's what works for you. So at the end of the day, anyone can give you any advice, but it's all about embodiment. And so if you try things yourself and think, hey, I really like meditating sitting up, or I really prefer meditating laying down, then that's what's meant for you. You know you best. I also just generally like being on the floor, even if I'm sitting. And I have like this nice jute rug, but because that can be a bit harsh, like over the past few months, I actually ordered a yoga mat from Manduka. It's like a skinny travel yoga mat, and I actually always meditate on the yoga mat now, also to kind of associate, like, okay, now I'm on the yoga mat and this is where we do meditation. And I find that I can very easily now just, yeah, kind of disappear. Once you're meditating so long, you can go through phases of just not thinking at all. And then really cool stuff starts to happen. That's what I want to share about meditation. Meditation has helped me heal my body. It has helped me release things that no longer serve me. It has helped me on my long COVID recovery process. It helps me manage my energy. It helps me be aware of my energy field. And yeah, it's a massive, massive part actually of my day to day life now. And I need meditation. Like before before I got COVID and I had like not been able to stick with it, it was something that I had to like force myself to do. And now in the day, it's like, okay, now it's time to meditate because I've built the habit, obviously. But also, I really need it. Each time I meditate, I notice that I get different things. And so sometimes when I meditate, I might not be able to go as deep into it because maybe that's just not what I needed that day. But sometimes my entire body goes completely numb. Sometimes I'm not here. Sometimes I have thoughts. Sometimes I Sometimes I don't have any thoughts at all. Sometimes I get guidance. I highly, highly recommend meditating and, yeah, figuring out a way that works for you. And I'm sure that you'll find as you meditate more, your practice will evolve. So I feel like that's been a long chat now. So I think I'm going to end here. But thank you so much for listening to this. And thank you to the people who are interested in hearing more about my recovery journey, my healing story, my meditation practice. I would love to talk more about this. I'm always just kind of aware of why people follow me and what content they might want from me. So if any part of this interests you and you'd like me to talk more about it, then please comment and let me know. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this first video in the Tea Story series, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.